And yes, I'm here today to give the Halloween edition of MrxPros, and I thought it would only be fitting if I wore my Jedi headdress while I did that. So let's do this. All right, as a brief background, for the folks who are not from the United States, trick-or-treating here is a big deal. But if you didn't know, let me just share some quick facts. So the roots of trick-or-treating go back more than 2,000 years to the ancient Celts, and they celebrated a pagan festival that I don't know how to pronounce, but maybe it's Samhain, on November 1st, that marked the end of the harvest season. And the night before, they believed the dead returned as ghosts, so they left food and wine on the doorsteps to appease them. Perhaps some of you on this call wish that that was still what Halloween was about. But back in the day, you couldn't just show up on a doorstep and demand candy, right? You had to entertain for it. And in the Middle Ages, children went door to door dressed in disguises, like I just had on, and sung and danced and told jokes and recited poetry in exchange for that food and wine. It wasn't until the 19th century that the Irish and Scottish immigrants actually revived and turned Halloween into what we know it today as trick-or-treating. And we go house to house and our children dress up and they say trick or treat in exchange for candy. And it's estimated that in the US, we will spend $3.8 billion this year on candy alone. So what candies are people spending their money on? Well, according to candystore.com, the top 3 Halloween candies today are Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, M&Ms, and Hot Tamales. And they even put this out on a state level. So feel free to find your state and the candies that are top there. If you know me, you know I'm a Michigander, and our top 3 candies are Starburst, candy corn, and Butterfinger. And embarrassingly, I am one of the few people who spends and consumes an exorbitant amount of candy corn. So I imagine there are quite a few people on this call now who are disgusted by me, as candy corn is one of the most polarizing Halloween options. But this presentation is not about me. What we really want to know is, how did candystore.com come up with these top ranks per state? Well, they're looking at which candies consumers spend their money on. But let's imagine that what if the top Halloween candy wasn't based on sales and that it was based on marketing research instead? A world where the candy that people love the most would be crowned the winner, not just the one that made the most money. Now, I'm sure I'm connecting with all of you on this phone, right? Because we're all marketing researchers, and oftentimes we're tasked with determining which concept or message or benefit or claim is going to do the best in market. And we don't actually have sales data or anything to tell us about things that haven't come to the market yet. So whatever shall we do? Well, linking back to Halloween, we could leverage a Max Diff, right? If you know anything about me, you know that I love Max Diff. It's also the kid sister to conjoint. So if you take anything away from this conversation, you're already on your way to knowing more about conjoint analysis as well. But Max Diff can be used for nearly anything, right? If you want to prioritize a set of features for your next product, or the messaging about your new service, or uncovering the ultimate Halloween candy. So in a Max Diff, if you aren't familiar, respondents are typically shown between 2 to 6 items on every screen and asked to indicate which one is best and which one is worse. We ask this question multiple times depending on how many items we want to test, showing a different set of items on every screen. In our Max Diff, we tested 60 candies. We showed 4 candies per screen across a total of 15 screens. If you can do the simple math, that means that if you took the survey, you saw each of these candies 1 time. And the cool thing is that by just those 2 clicks, that best and that worst, we know a lot of things about you, right? Let's imagine that that person picked candy corn as best and pixie sticks as worst. We already know that candy corn is better than the other 3 options available, and that pixie sticks is worse. The only thing that we don't know for that person is whether they like Mary Jane more than Kit Kat or Kit Kat more than Mary Jane. And since we have 60 candies and many different opinions on which candies are the best, we as fervent market researchers head out to collect data from more people so that we can uncover what the ultimate Halloween candy actually is. Then once we get our data back, we do this super secret mathematical process to come up with the answers, right? But it's not really that secret. It's actually just a regression model, probably something that many of us maybe learned in high school. Nowadays, they're teaching it in like second grade. But it is just a regression, a multinomial logit, if you want to be exact. And we leverage an additional technique called hierarchical Bayes, or HB, as some people know it, so that we can get preferences for every individual, for each of the 60 candies, without having to ask everyone about every single possible pair of candies, or asking them to rank 60 different items, because that's near impossible. And I don't know if you can hear this, but it is a drum roll. So the top 10 candies of the MRX community are, oh, the suspense, hold on. Can't see where the next button is. There we go. All right, top 10 candies of the MRX community are Twix at number 1, Kit Kat number 2, Snickers, Reese's Peanut Butter Cup, Reese's Pieces, Butterfinger, M&M's, Milky Way, Rolo, and Heath Bar. Unfortunately, candy corn did not make the top 10, but it is not in the 10 worst candies. So hopefully your favorite candy is not among the 10 worst. Ironically, you can see here that hot tamales are the 9th worst candy amongst our group, and yet they were the top 3 in sales. So here we are doing the true work of marketing researchers and letting things win that don't necessarily result in perfect sales, but rather what communicates best to us and our community about the top and ultimate Halloween candy. And the great news about MaxDiff is that if you wanted, I could give you the full stack rank of all 60 candies. Not only that, but when you look at the data, these numbers are ratio scaled. So I can actually understand the gap in preference between a top ranked item and a 5th ranked item, right? They are ratio scaled. So a score of a 4 is twice as good as a score of a 2. If you can do simple math, which again, I'm not very good at, we can see that a Twix is about 1.5 times better than a Heath Bar if you take 4.4 divided by 2.7. Now, it's common practice when you look at MaxDiff results that they're placed on a 0 to 100 scale and all of the items add up to 100. So with 60 items in our list, an average score would be a 1.6. So all these top 10 candies outperform an average score. They are much better and if not the best, again, within our community. And better yet, since we ran that hierarchical Bayesian model that gave us preferences for each individual, I can then create clusters of our community and ask you, which group are you in, right? Are you in the Twix, Reese's Peanut Butter Cup, Snickers group, or are you more Heath Bar, Butterfinger, whatchamacallits? Or do you like the mints and the old school M&Ms? Or are you not chocolate at all and you like the sugary Airheads and Jolly Ranchers and Sour Patch Kids? Right, so we have 4 different clusters. I'm curious to know which ones you're in. And even better news, MaxDiff doesn't need large sample sizes. Everything that I just showed you was done on the 73 people who answered for free, 10 of them being my employees. But we could run a model with this data on as little as n equals 20 and get directional results. Probably couldn't do the clustering, but it's super helpful to tease out differentiation between items. Because if I asked you which of these candies do you like or would be willing to buy, you'd probably say a lot of them, right? Or if I had you rate items on favorability or uniqueness, then I'd be sitting there judging between a mean score or a top box score or a top 2 box score. And I don't really have a clear winner. When with our group, Twix is a pretty clear winner. People have to choose, right? And so when we force people to choose or make those difficult trade-offs, we learn what they truly value. But you don't have to take my word for it. You can watch this guy, Babish, go through a head-to-head tournament of 32 Halloween candies to crown his favorite. 56,000 people have watched this. I think I've watched it like 7 times. But even he agrees that you have to force people to make trade-offs to uncover what they truly value. He has to pit that Reese's peanut butter cup up against a Baby Ruth to ultimately decide that only one of them can be the winner. Okay, so that is my Halloween edition of the MRX Pros. When we go into the breakout rooms for an icebreaker, I thought it would be cool to just say what is your ultimate Halloween treat. And then for the second one, kind of unveiling things a little bit, deep down, my entire goal in life is to demystify how hard quantitative analysis is. And so hopefully I've convinced more people on this call that MathStiff is a great tool and a technique and something that you don't need to be afraid of. So to stretch you guys, I was thinking we could ask, what's a way that you've, in the Halloween theme, disguised something difficult to get buy-in?